Hey, how's it going, everybody? Welcome to another episode of the weekly Stand-Up. This is episode 3, and thank you all for joining me. My name is Josh Miller, and I am joined by my co-host Jessica Gonzalez.
Me, and we're also here today with a friend of the show and also volunteer that helps work on the show, Mad Laden, but also call him Ollie. So your preference, really. You want to introduce yourself?
On Twitch, I go by Mad Latin. I stream politics, chess, and I help do all the communication stuff with Weekly Stand Up. I'm really excited to do it. Yeah, it's been a blast.
Thanks for joining
Awesome.
us, Mad Lad. We appreciate it,
Yeah.
and all the hard work that you do on the show.
Oh, thanks.
Before we jump into the topics for today, we do want to preface that this episode will eventually, we're going to be diving into some segments that, touches on some sensitive topics such as suicide and death. So we just want to start the show by with that disclaimer in case, if that's not something you're comfortable viewing, then that's totally understandable. When we get to that segments, I'll give another warning, and you're more than welcome to drop out. So just a heads up.
Yeah, thanks for
So
that, Josh.
yeah, of course. Yeah, so as we dive into the episode, I do want to thank everybody who might be joining us for the first time and all of our returning viewers. Thanks for tuning in. We've got a lot to talk about. A lot happened. It's been a very, very busy week. I'm sure I'm sure people have probably seen some of the news that has come out. It's been a week. Mike, if you want to drop the tweet, the situation with Epic and Gregor. Um, so I don't if anyone hasn't seen it, Gregor Thunder Dragon is his name on Twitter. He posted that his last paycheck cleared. So here we go. Epic Games has fired me for speaking out about their internal diversity practices for pronouns. They said that it was about performance, but this is easily proven wrong as I have documentation from 3 days prior describing my performance as exceptional. Apparently, he spoke out in a public internal channel about their practice being crappy and suggested that referencing queer folk, contact um, the GLAAD, which is an organization for accelerating acceptance for the LGBTQ community, and seeing if they could weigh in, since Epic pretends to have a partnership with them. And he suggested that they could collectively take action, which on paper, all of that sounds great. Uh, Unfortunately, apparently, Epic's response was to let him go. So not a great situation. Jess, what are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, so actually, I had been talking to him in DMs on Twitter because when I started advocating for Activision Blizzard and DE&I and stuff, he approached me and was like, "Hey, I really want to do this at Epic. Like, how can I help?" And I was like, "Well, it starts with like education. Talk in your public channels, see if you can like make the space safer for queer folk, and things like that." So I actually knew a little bit about what he was trying to do. I didn't know that he got fired until I saw that tweet. Which is why I retweeted it. But he was very afraid to go forward with that, and so we had been talking in the DMs for a little bit. And I finally was like, "Wow, I'm proud of you for coming forward because I know how hard that is." Especially in a company, Activision Blizzard was already kind of in the hot seat, so it was a little bit like, people were more supportive, whereas like Epic, a lot of people are very like pro Epic and they've done some great things recently, like converting all of those QA testers. So it's hard, right? Like you feel like you're up against this huge Goliath, and it unfortunately resulted in him losing his job. And, I support him and everything, and I would love to get his thoughts on the show. But I think right now it's a little soon, and I definitely want him to like seek legal counsel just because this whole situation just seems wrong, right? Like it definitely seems grounds for a wrongful termination case and possibly discrimination. So I'm not gonna force someone into like an uncomfortable conversation, especially because I think Epic makes you sign a ton of NDAs when you leave. So
Yeah, yeah, I always respect anyone who's going to step up and speak out about the wrongs that they experienced at the company in an industry that's so tight knit as ours. Anytime you do something like that and stick your neck out, you're risking your career, your like livelihood,
Very.
and the ability to be rehired at other companies. So whenever someone's taking that risk for the greater good to bring awareness to situations like this, which is the only way that change can really happen, is when people speak out. I just have the utmost respect for them. So
Same.
Gregor, if you're watching or if you see this, we stand with you, and our hearts are with you, and
Always.
I
And
hope
sorry, go ahead.
I just hope that you're able to find another gig and land on your feet. And if there's anything we can do to help, our resources are your resources.
Yep, our platform is yours, and any dev who wishes to, make their workplace a better place, please reach out. I mean, we have resources, and I mean, even the solidarity, if we can give you that, we'd love to.
Absolutely. So moving on to our next this is this contrasts a little bit because this is actually some good news in the industry that so seldom comes, so let's appreciate it for what it is. With the Wordle unionization, this is awesome. So one of the developers at Wordle, which got acquired by the New York Times, so now they work for the New York Times, which is cool. Like I think that's, if we could just focus on the fact that like a magazine, or like a one of the like top journalistic like flagships of America, like bought a game developer. Like that's interesting, and that's kind of cool. So Leah Nemeth, one of the developers over there, announced on Twitter that they unionized Wordle. Very short tweet, just said we unionized
Yep.
Wordle. Um, so yeah, that's awesome. I would love to dig deeper into how that came about and some of the benefits that studio is seeing as a result. If we're ever able to get a word with any of them over there, but yeah, that's all we know so far, and that's awesome. That's great
Ever
news.
ever able to
And
get a Wordle with them?
if I could ever get a Wordle with
Haha.
them, I do.
Ah,
That's
I haven't
great.
played Wordle yet, but
same.
I think I have to now, just like out of
What?
respect for everyone
I
over there. I
know.
know,
I'm
I know.
sorry.
Amazing. I mean, no, it's fine. I've been it was like really hot for like the last 2 months. Like just every day I've been like looking forward to that Wordle and like trying to nail it on like the four. Like, I try to get the 4 words in. I don't want to hit six, and I don't want to guess too early. I'm just trying to. Well, okay. I actually had a question about how this might have happened, right? So like this
Mhm.
is what I'm envisioning, and like you guys have been in the industry, so you can like really explain it to me. I'm like imagining the situation where when the New York Times bought Wordle, they had to hire staff to manage the product, right? So they probably
Mhm.
like they wouldn't have had people on hand already. So is it just possible that like folks, on the one of the first few days of just meeting decided, hey, let's unionize? Is that how easy it could have been?
I don't know. It's hard, right? Like smaller
Hmm.
studios can unionize quickly, which is why we saw the unionization of Vodeo Games. They're a smaller studio and they were just like, yeah, we unionized. And they actually cited a better ABK as an inspiration, which is super cool. But companies that are bigger, like Activision Blizzard, it's very hard to unionize quickly. So I feel like that might have been. I feel like a lot of the online presence towards the labor movements and unionization probably had a big factor in them unionizing. I don't know that they were like, "Oh, giant company purchasing us, let's unionize."
Right. Well, he was
Yeah.
just the guy by himself before. So like Wordle before was
Mm,
just like one dude, and then New York Times like just bought the whole thing from him. So like I'm imagining
yeah.
that the New York Times just had to like
Yeah, that's fair.
do
It could
something
be,
for him.
honestly. Yeah. Maybe they're more open to unionization, who knows? Maybe they don't hire Reed Smith.
Yeah, we can really only speculate, but
Yeah.
I mean, I have to assume that like the New York Times staff, like all of their on-staff writers who aren't contract, they're unionized, aren't they?
Mhm. I know that Washington Post is, I believe.
Okay,
So
gotcha.
I think in like that sphere, that industry, it's more common to be a union there.
Also,
Um,
anyone under Vox Media, which I know they own one or two papers, I just don't know who they are.
Okay,
mm.
Ooh,
gotcha.
interesting, interesting.
Could we
Because
pull
I
a
know
Joe
Polygon
Rogan?
Polygon is under their union contract.
Can we pull a
Interesting.
Joe Rogan moment? And Mike, can you do a quick Google search and see if the New York Times staff is unionized?
Absolutely.
Yeah, what are
Sweet.
they? What is when Joe Rogan does that? What does he call that? He's like Jamie. Yeah, hey Jamie. Hey Mike.
Jamie, hey
Jamie.
Jamie, grab
Look
it.
it up. Look it up. Because we're not just gonna,
Uh
unlike Joe Rogan, we're not just gonna spout stuff as facts and without
right.
fact checking it.
Apparently,
Um,
Vox Media owns the New Yorker and Intelligencer, and a bunch of other things actually. But they're like the Cut, Vulture. I don't think these are big.
yeah.
Mm.
That's
The
really the only
Verge.
way these these organizations and outlets can stay in business anymore is if they, group up with a major media network, and otherwise they would all go out of business. But when I was at BuzzFeed, but BuzzFeed News was like not at all profitable and experienced the heaviest layoffs during my time there, and went from staffing like some of the really, really amazing writers when they first launched, award winners, and eventually like it just you saw the dip in quality, right? Like when they started laying off all their top tier people, it turned from like actual like hard hitting journalism into what I think more people might expect from BuzzFeed, which is like just
No.
Yeah.
listicles, and like celebrity drama and stuff like that. But yeah, sorry, went on a tangent there.
No,
Yeah.
good stuff.
I have to imagine that like if they are unionized there already, then it might have been a seamless transition. Like, oh, we've got software developers and stuff now. They should form their own union.
Yeah, so we got a lot of good news on this regard. First of all, recently the New York Times tech side, we're all unionized, about a 404 to 88. And New York Times has had their writers in getting the exact name here, the New York News Guild, local 31003 CWA, for a while now. So it looks like, as far as I can tell, everyone, at least on the public facing side, on the writer and editorial side, are also unionized.
Okay, that makes total sense
Wow.
then.
That's awesome.
Good for
Yeah.
them. Yeah.
Awesome. Would love to see more of that happen in the wider tech industry. That would be great.
Yeah, it's like important. I mean, not even in the tech, like just anywhere. Like honestly,
Yes, everything.
yeah, like just because like you just need that like insurance. I think like if you're gonna put like your sweat, blood, and tears into a project, you want to know that like it's gonna result in something that's like not just good for like the bottom line, but like good for you too, right?
Yeah,
Right.
absolutely. Yeah,
Mm.
so that was a very great. What
Oh, sorry, I spoiled. I
was
spoiled.
was it a good sip? Was that a good sip, Mad Lad?
Yes, it was a very fantastic coffee, and not
Is this
me
where we out
reacting to
him?
what we're
Is this
about
where we
to-
out him?
Do you want to
Um,
do? Okay, fine, I'll do it.
Yeah,
Fine.
Yeah,
show
please
show
your-
how you store your
So
coffee.
I have this bowl, right? I mean, we're almost out. We have to get a refill, but every
Unbelievable.
morning I will make a giant pot of coffee. I'll put it in this bowl, and I'll actually mix in some like faucet water too, just to get the cooling process accelerated and to make a little bit more coffee. So
This is
the
disgusting.
coffee is actually like very heavy to start. Like, I put extra grinds in there because I know I'm going to cut it with the water, right? And this bowl is like, you can kind of see the rings, like how much coffee is usually in here. I don't know if you guys can tell, right? And then I'll just like, when I run out of coffee in my good old trusty mug here, I'll just kind of, refill.
Oh my
and
God,
that's
that
it.
I almost threw up.
Yep.
This is not helping my hangover. Well,
Yeah.
if
great.
anyone's looking for a community relations job, I think we have to. I think we need someone new.
I'll never do it on camera again. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to.
I hope you know that this is probably going to be our first TikTok clip. Is that?
Oh God,
I love that for us.
Well, at least it's not a bowl full of Coca-Cola. So
Oh,
recently,
great segue.
thank you. I'm really proud of that one. So if you want to bring up the article from CNBC, recently Bobby Kotick, or as I have him labeled in our notes, Baby Kotika, has left the board of Coca-Cola. I'm sure it was totally by choice, and he wasn't forced out as a result of all the controversy surrounding him. It was definitely
Honorable
what he
thing
did.
for him to do. Honestly, he was like, you know what? I've been sitting on the board of Coca-Cola. Let me just step back. There's a little bit of bad press. I'm gonna step back for a little bit. I'm pretty sure that's exactly what happened. No, I'm pretty sure. They were like, yo, Bobby, why can't you stay out of the fucking news? And he was like, and then he was like, hell, I'll tell everyone I'm gonna step down and then do the honorable thing. Yeah.
So this is like kind of a dumb aside, but I'm just gonna say it. I'm kind of disappointed that Microsoft announced a plan to buy Activision for $68.7 billion in this article instead of the traditionally rounded up 69.
It went down.
this
Our
is-
work is working, friends.
Yeah, they've lost $300 million in value.
We are eroding the institutions at their base.
That's
You'll
why I
have to see
started
it.
this. It was to slowly chip away millions of dollars from their buy price. We're
I
doing
can't
good
wait
work here.
to explain this show in a legal proceeding later.
Right, right.
But no, it's really interesting that, I feel like he probably did this as a preemptive thing because he knows that everyone in the world is suing him right now, and they were probably going to come for his, everything. So Coca-Cola was probably like, "Yo, what the fuck?" And he was
I mean,
like,
like,
"Yeah, I'll step down."
all this stuff is like smoke and mirrors, right? Like at the end of the
Right.
day, like all these people hang out, they talk to each other on a regular
Yeah.
basis. They probably like, all right, well, I'm sorry if we have to do this. Let's figure out like, the cleanest, goldenest parachute we can give you
Right.
here. And then we'll just, agree upon these terms, send out like these publicity things, whatever, and then just like let them go. So,
Yeah.
I mean, in this case, and it's just like when he wrote that, who did he write the letter for? I forgot her name.
Francis Townsend.
Yes.
Yep.
Yes. It's just like that. Like where like, he writes this pre-structured letter for her and then, makes her look bad. And he's trying to get off like, that he's like this reformer or whatever. This feels like very similar vibes, right?
It definitely
Like,
does.
okay.
Yeah, and I think you were right on the money with. I mean, these people all like gather at their barbecue, like barbecue 4th of July barbecues together and stuff like that.
Sweet
Like
baby Rays.
he's friends with Phil Spencer, of Microsoft. Like at the end of the day, none of these like the actual consequences other than
Yep.
saving face are like they don't exist for these people. There are no consequences. And I'm
Yeah.
sure there was like a behind the door settlement where it's like, hey, if you like publicly like leave the company, so we can save face, we'll like on the side, we'll like give you, some stock options or like
Yeah.
payouts or something.
And speaking of, it's not in our notes, but Bobby Kotick also blamed Microsoft and the purchase for not hiring a woman to their executive board. And they had since 2019. So they were being investigated by the DFEH this entire time, mind you, for like
Oh,
being shitty to women.
apparently.
Um,
Apparently,
I'm
it is in the
sorry. I'm
notes.
sorry. What's not in our notes? I'm sorry.
oh, it was in the
I'm
notes.
sorry. Can Mike get an apology, please?
It wasn't in my notes. Sorry, Mike. I'll fire myself. How about that?
I think it's my fault to be
So,
honest. I mean, I can let you guys keep pointing fingers at each other, but I feel like maybe I put two different things of notes, and then
we're
one of
all
them.
just gonna have to
Where-
step down
All
and
right, I did a bad copy paste. All
So-
right, I'm gonna do the honorable thing. I've decided not to stand for re-election in weekly stand-up.
That's not enough,
Uh,
Jess. We need you to leave the board.
Oh shit!
You know what? Here, I can do it right now. Hold on. I can do it right
Chat,
now.
we are now recruiting replacement
Wow.
individuals. Wait, is my shoulder being like selected for a replacement? Like, is that how this?
my
I like to
bad,
think that
but-
me and Jess are the two Spider-Man pointing at each other, and then Josh is off on a rooftop, like eating popcorn, watching us.
Yeah.
Yeah, there you go.
Um,
That's
We
what
are
happens in that
Josh's
meme.
dysfunctional children. So.
I am my own dysfunctional child. I don't need any more. I can barely handle myself.
But yeah,
Um,
like Josh, you were mentioning though, like you I'm sure there's these talks that happen behind the scenes, and I'm wondering because him and Phil are friends or whatever, right?
yeah,
I'm wondering if Phil was like, yeah, blame the merger,
probably. Yeah, because
But
I mean, there's no way they would publicly make a statement like this. No, like do anything to put the acquisition at risk. There's just no way.
just
So
doesn't
like,
make sense logistically either because they were told in 2019 that they had to hire a woman to the board. And then the merger didn't happen until 2020 in November, or like
yeah,
the announcement was it 2021? Anyway, they had time. And so it doesn't make sense to blame something that came about at like the tail end of the expiry date or whatever, like the date they were supposed to hire her by. Um, yeah, crazy.
Yeah, it's
the,
also like interesting to me, like going back to the theatrics again, right? Like
Mhm.
everybody knows this is bullshit,
Yeah.
right? But like in the legalese, when things like this are happening, like there is like some sort of like due diligence that like a lawyer has to put into like
Right.
like figuring out what's going on with the claim and making sure that they give like a charitable. It has to be like a charitable response. Like if they just say, "Hey, this is bullshit," then maybe there'll be like some sort of legal edge that Activision would get, right? So like it's just like putting more work on the is it prosecutors? Is that how the like? I don't know what the technical term would be for the folks who are actually taking ABK to court.
Maybe
Would it be
prosecutors. I
prosecutors
think.
or
Yeah.
what was
It-
it,
it-
Jessica?
I said plaintiffs.
No, wait, that would be ABK themselves, right?
Defendants.
So
And the
Activision would be the
plaintiffs.
defendant in this case.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh,
So,
I see. So the lawyers for the plaintiffs, but I don't
Yeah.
think it's a prosecution because it's not a criminal case, right?
It fucking
Do we need
should
a-
be.
Yeah,
They
wait,
need
is
to
it not a
fucking-
criminal case?
We'll get there.
let's get the
I
SAG
thought this
lawyers
was-
on.
Yeah, we're getting the SAG
Clarify.
lawyers.
I'm
I'm
going
not
in
a
the Jamie
lawyer,
mode.
I'm
Yeah.
just.
I
Yeah, we're
just-
gonna get Jamie to
this is-
like solve this
that-
for us.
Mad lad, this is I took one business law class. This is not my wheelhouse.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
Wait,
Jess has
Ollie,
been in more courtrooms
Malik,
than
you-
I've been in.
Can you define exactly what you want me to figure out? Can you just reiterate it? Because I feel like we've spun it 3 times
So-
now.
I was about to use the term prosecutor for the legal team that is working with the plaintiffs, right? And that's not actually necessarily accurate. So I think we need to know like what the type of case, like what type of case this is. Is it considered like I don't think it's like criminal justice.
No, it's definitely not
It's
criminal.
civil.
But
It's
I
like a
think
civil
I think we're
suit.
also getting too far into the weeds here.
Yeah, true,
It
true,
loo-
true.
it
We're
looks
gonna
like
have
it's
lawyers on
just-
and
This
we'll-
is
It's
this
just
is for
the-
my side podcast. That is, for anyone who's into law. I have Judge Josh. It's every Thursday at 6 a.m.
No,
So
that's what we
tune
should
in,
do.
Tune in for that one.
We're
Only
gonna,
available on
we're-
Zune devices. It looks like it's just either the plaintiff's attorney or the law firm. It's just
Okay.
how it's referred to.
So there's no title. Interesting. Okay, no, I was gonna say, for our, like our in between episodes. So we're thinking about having like episodes that show up randomly in the week. So stay tuned for that.
Yeah, I do want to
Um,
do. I'm thinking of calling it off the rails or something. Still workshopping, but I do want to do stuff that is less news based and less like serious and more community based, where it's just like I might be streaming a game and like this is how I would QA this game if I was QAing it. Stuff
if,
like that.
If it's off the rails, we should have both a show called Off the Rails and then a separate channel also called Off the Rails, where we make a show called Off the Rails, but it isn't
Oh my
off
God.
the rails.
Oh, also,
So,
shout out
and
to
Only
Ed
Jess will get this reference. I
for all
think.
that.
So, Activision,
Um,
this to get back on the rails. Activision board statement in this regard was to meet this requirement and improve the diversity of our board of directors. The company retained a search firm and began interviewing potential additional directors in 2021. However, since the company's current directors would cease to continue to serve on our board of directors upon consummation of our proposed transaction with Microsoft, wow, their wordage is just. Anyways,
This is right from the article.
We were unable to conclude the process in 2021. We will be continuing our efforts to appoint a new female director. Why can't they between this losing Jen O'Neill, just what is their aversion to having any female leadership? How do they keep continually fucking this up? It's like they are trying to be the worst possible villains.
Bobby
I do not
Kotick,
understand.
derogatory.
I mean, they're just dropping all the balls. It seems like, and
Everybody.
I wonder how many, and I wonder how many women would actually say, "Hey, I want to take this job," considering what's happening in the news too. I
Right.
don't have any perspective for this, but
And I know we keep bringing up Jen O'Neill, but it really is the pivotal moment of how horrible can you be to hire a female, have her co-lead, don't pay her enough as her male counterpart, and she had a stellar resume. Everyone loved her. We were like, yes, this is gonna save the company, and you fuck that up so royally. It's just they can't hire women. It's not it doesn't feel like a safe company for women, and that's showing in everything they're doing, right? So it's just weird. I wish more entities and people would sue them. So looking forward to that.
Yeah, speaking of entities suing Blizzard, Jess, our next item, and let's bring up the PDF of that. Jess filed a motion to object to the EEOC settlement with
I did.
Activision Blizzard. Jess, would you first of all, would you like to describe the EEOC and talk about what you did there with the courts?
Yeah, so the EEOC also announced that they were suing Activision Blizzard for discrimination and sexual harassment in the workplace. And then Activision Blizzard met with them and they'd went on a settlement that was $17 million.
And
I
that's
believe it
the
was 17.
equal. Does that stand for equal
Equal Opportunity and Exchange Commission.
Gotcha. Yep.
Um, yeah, and they went and made a settlement, and I think it was the way I see it, is I felt like it was brought in to kind of throw a wrench in the DFEH's case. And upon looking at the settlement a little bit more, I realized, yeah, that's exactly what the settlement is. So I filed with some great union lawyers. Um, a motion to intervene and object the settlement as it stands because one, I believe the number is way too low for how many people were affected. If all of the survivors and victims were to elect into the settlement, it would be barely anything. As well as there's something in that settlement that says if you were to take the settlement, you would be forfeiting the state of California's right to represent you, which I don't feel like the EEOC should have their legal right to do. I feel like that was a loophole that they threw in to kind of, to thwart the DFEH. So I don't think that's right. And that's why I filed that. And yeah, we'll see. Maybe I will have to sit in court with Reed Smith and be like, "Hey, remember me?"
I'm sure they love you at this point.
Yeah, I'll
And
be.
what
Yeah,
is the number at right now for the settlement?
I think it's 17 million.
That
I
sounds right. I think I do
think
remember reading 17 mil, which is yeah. I mean,
Wow.
if you compare that to Riot settlement, which was 100 million, that's
it's
just
like, yeah, and I feel like they should be adding contractors because those are the people that are mostly affected. So I will definitely be asking for contractors as well and a higher number.
yeah.
And I'm not gonna forfeit the right for the state of California to represent me as well. Like that, they just shouldn't be able to do that. So
Agreed. This is way too easy of a deal for Blizzard. I mean, they would, I'm sure, happily sweep all this under the rug for 17 million. That's nothing for them.
Yeah.
exactly. And I mean, Bobby Kotick, ugh, again, I'm saying his name, but he also gets a golden parachute of 200 million. So this really is pocket change to him. And it's sad that like that's the value that he's placing on survivors of his decades of neglect and just completely I mean even participating in the shit culture that he cultivated, right? Like it just really is a slap in the face. So I again like this motion that I would like to intervene and object is mostly like, hey, accountability needs to be had. You're not going to rush into this thing and silence a bunch of victims. So yeah,
Yeah, I
I mean,
totally agree.
the purchase is $68 billion, and like 17
right.
million is like what, a fourth? No, 1/4000th of that. Is that what that is? I think so.
Yeah, it's like
Like
the
literally.
equivalent of him opening his wallet, giving someone a 20 and being like, "Here, go see a movie or something." Like it's just horribly inadequate, especially for the nature of some of the abuse that people went through. And yeah, I just the accountability needs to be had, and this settlement is kind of nothing. So
Yeah.
Mm.
we'll
Um,
see.
hopefully, and Jess, you can take the lead on this one too, but hopefully the legislation that Joe is
Mhm.
either already passed or in the, yep, he signed, recently signed a new law which will end forced arbitration in sexual harassment lawsuits, which is, for people who are unaware, when very common in the film and entertainment industry, as well as the video game industry. When you sign on to a company, you're generally like part of the sign on paperwork. You generally have to like give away your right to sue in court, like when
Mm.
it comes to anything from wrongful termination to sexual harassment, and you usually have to do something called forced arbitration, where you settle out of court. So Jester, you're welcome to take the lead
Yeah.
on this one.
Yeah, so finally something good coming from the White House, right? That being said, like not everything is perfect, but I will take this W as it stands because one, this shouldn't even have had to been a thing, right? Like you should be able to take someone to court if you're sexually harassed or discriminated against on the job. But the forced arbitration that's written in the contracts prevents that because I'm assuming, PR and like company integrity and things like that. I have no idea, but this is really great to see because I mean, you can sue people like employers for being shitty employers and holding them accountable. It's really huge to just be able to hold them accountable for things. And the cool thing about this law is it's retroactive. So
Oh, that's awesome.
if you've been gagged by an order, guess what? You can take them to court now. So please do it. Please take them to court. You
And
should.
this is like, and this is like actually really important. Like any company you work for can make you sign like whatever contract they think is like viable, but like half the time, the legality of that contract is not valid at all. Like I worked at a company that made us sign like this non-compete, right? So I wouldn't be able to teach group lessons for whatever activity in the region for X number of times, years, whatever.
Oh, okay.
And
Yeah.
yeah, and it turned out there's no legal standing for this contract to be valid. So like the way this went
Yeah.
down, there was someone who like had signed this, realized that it was way more lucrative to just do their own thing, and then when there was like this threat of intervention, say, hey, no, you signed this thing, the person who left the company said, well, I don't think you have a legal ground to stand on, so I'm just gonna keep doing my thing, and then you can try to sue me, right?
Yep. So that's
And
one
that's like
thing
the point.
I did learn in business law. I actually did learn about this and how often a lot of the stuff is included in the paperwork that we sign at companies is not enforceable at all in court, and they just have
Yeah.
it there to scare
To
you. It's
scare
really a
you.
scare tactic.
Yep.
Non-compete non-competes in general there are some that are enforceable, but they're usually like restricted to like a very small geography and also like a limited time. Like a lot of the
Mhm.
non-competes that you see out there, it's like, oh, you can't work for like another company for like a certain amount of years, and that's insane. Like,
It is.
how am I supposed to like survive not
Yeah.
working in this industry for like a certain amount of years? Like usually those are only for like 3 to 6 months, if that, and
Right.
they're limited to like the city that you live in or something like that.
And by the
So
way, if you're in I mean, this is a gig economy, right? So if you're signing
yeah.
contracts for gigs, like I had to sign like numerous contracts that definitely conflict with each other. You can say, hey, I can't actually, like, if you actually feel uncomfortable, you can actually say, hey, I'm adjusting this contract. This is what I'm providing. And like, if they're desperate, they will literally take the new contract that you offer. Now, this is not official legal advice, by the way. I'm not a lawyer. Do not 100%
Same.
listen to what I'm saying here. All I'm saying here is that that's what I practice. This is what I've been doing. I
Yeah.
would
And
literally say, hey, yeah.
yeah.
Oh, go ahead.
Read your contracts. Read your contracts, and you are legally allowed to seek legal counsel before signing a contract. So read your contracts, and then if you feel like you want a legal representative to look over it, you can do that as well. Like that, you're within your legal right to do that. And another thing too, like in the entertainment industry, when I worked at an indie company, we are just starting up, we are in pre-alpha. They had us sign intellectual property contract where like anything that you made during your time there could belong to them unless you wrote what you were making already on the paper. So like if you already had intellectual property going into the company, you had to write that down. Otherwise they could take it from you essentially. And some people do that. Yeah, some people
That's
actually do
wild.
that. So like if you worked at Activision Blizzard per
I've had
se
that.
and you created a project totally on your own and you didn't tell Activision Blizzard, but you were, you created it while working there. They could be like, this is ours now. And I mean, Bobby probably would do something like that. So
And,
again, read your
actually,
contracts.
this actually reminds me of another clause I had to deal with. Like in education, if you
Yeah.
have like a new way of teaching this topic or the subject or whatnot, the company I had worked for actually had that in the contract. Like if I learn a new way of teaching something, I can't like use it to make my own curricula. Like if
Hmm.
I'm, if I leave the company, I have to, credit it to the company and ask for permission, et cetera, et cetera. Which again, I think is nonsense because like
Yeah.
my intellectual property is like, the
Right.
stuff that I made.
Exactly.
Not
And like Josh
yeah.
mentioned, it's scare tactics. It really is like I don't know. It's so weird in the U.S. Like I think these big wig companies, like they know they have legal counsel. They know they have money to throw at problems, so they scare people out of taking them to court because it's like they'll either exhaust your money and extend everything and like make you pay for lawyers and all this stuff, or they'll scare you in the beginning so that way when you leave the company you can't sue them for anything. So
Right.
Now, in the comments, Bachl Industries does bring up a very good point. Everyone is contractually obligated to follow and subscribe to the weekly stand-up.
True.
So
Please do that.
yeah, that's
um,
you actually just by clicking on our link, our Twitch link, that is, you are now contractually obligated to do that. So
Yeah. For a
sorry
few
about
follows a
that.
day, you can help Mad Ladin's coffee addiction.
true.
Don't
We can
we
get
don't
him
want
off
to
the
no
bowl.
we don't want to support the bowl.
You can get me
Okay.
off the bowl.
Off the
No.
bowl
Yeah,
and
yeah,
into a
get Mad Ladin
jacuzzi.
off the bowl.
Into a
I'm
jacuzzi.
gonna. We should get him like a you know the dog bowls, but like put his handle on
Yeah,
it,
right,
and that'll
right.
be
Like
his
get him
coffee.
off the. No, there's so. Oh my God, there's so many puns here.
For
Oh
our
God.
1000th, so this might be a little bit out there, but for our 1000th subscriber, we're gonna fill up a kiddie pool with coffee and put it in Mad Lad's bedroom. So then
Now,
you're set. You take your little cup and you just gotta like dip it in there and you're good.
now
Love
you
it.
said that, but like I will actually do that. Like if we get 1,000 subs, I would actually fill a kiddie pool with coffee. I'm not kidding. This
It'll
is
be
an
good for
actual promise.
days, for weeks.
On stream, I will literally. Not only will I do that, I will actually do a hot tub coffee, a
Oh
hot
my God.
coffee, whatever stream we're gonna call this, like live, like whatever. And you guys, it'll be like an AMA where we talk about like
I love
coffee
that.
and
Can we
I
switch
don't
it
know,
to
we'll figure it
tea
out.
and just have a tea episode?
No,
Like no news,
not
all
tea,
drama?
It's coffee.
It's gotta be coffee.
Oh,
Just the tea.
wait, that was a good pun though.
Yes.
We can make it a weekly segment if it's tea though, right? Like just the tea
Just
for
the
the
tea.
week.
Can I jump in real
to
quick
be
on our
honest,
last topic?
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah, so at my last place, I had a similar, IP ownership contract where like anything
Mhm.
I work on during work is technically owned by the company, and it's similarly not even for relevant stuff. It's to also like
Mhm.
discourage employees from retaking their free time when, like, for example, it was in
Yep.
VFX. So like you hit the render button and it's like, what am I going to do for this next amount of time? Well, they don't want you goofing off. So if you, in my case, write a script or another artist starts working on art, they try to be like, well, we're going to own that. So they discourage you from
Right.
trying to retake time that the company can't even use efficiently by scaring you into thinking that anything you would put your effort into would be lost to you.
That's wild. That's
Yeah,
wild. And
this
Adona. Oh, go ahead.
this corporate mindset of like, we have to squeeze as much productivity out of our employees as possible. Like while they're on the clock, we expect 8 hours of work is kind of, it's short-sighted and it's dumb. Like if there's nothing to do, there's nothing to do. And that downtime like will leave you more rested and able to work more productful during the times where you do have to crunch. So
And it's classist. It's classist as hell. Fight the system.
hell yeah, Jess. You said it. Would you like to elaborate?
No further questions.
Okay, no,
I'm just
okay.
kidding.
No further
I'm
comment.
kidding. No, it's because they don't want you talking to your coworkers. They don't want you unionizing. That's bad for the company. So, unionize.
No, they want to shave every penny they can and
Yeah,
use it to buy
they
a
want
yacht
to
somewhere.
exhaust you. Yeah, if you're tired, you're not gonna talk to other employees and be like, "Hey, we deserve better wages and we deserve mental health support and
Yeah.
we deserve dental and vision because guess what? Eyes and teeth are not a luxury item."
1,000 exhausted employees is like what, a bonus, like one of those golden pair. No, like not even one of, right? It's like a quarter. Wait, what's the scaling here? Like 1,000 employees losing like I just keep doing math. I guess like it's like $20 million, something
I
like
feel like I
that.
just got a look at the inside of your brain.
Yeah,
This is your brain
literally
on bowl
math
coffee.
tangents. True.
I saw the chess pieces moving.
Yeah.
I also wanted to get to Donna's point because like this was like really good, like or not really good, but like an important thing to mention. Like his dad was a
Yeah.
pattern shop maker, or sorry, not to assume gender. Their dad was a pattern shop maker. So he built custom things and rigs for the factory floor, and now it's owned by
Wow.
HD, which is
Yeah, that is a
shit.
thing
It
that
sucks.
happens. Yep. They want to own all of your productivity, whether it is theirs or not.
Like
It's
there used
on
to
their
be a
floor,
time.
so
Like, there
And
used to be a time where if you're like a crafter, you could like take what you've made and then transfer it to a new business, right? Like that would be an actual thing.
yeah.
Anyway,
yeah,
sorry,
yeah,
Josh,
this is a big problem with programmers, especially in the open source community, is that with open source, it's very common to just put out code that you used on projects
Mhm.
that aren't, under NDA or attached to anything, to just like put it out there for like anyone to utilize and then like adopt into their own projects. And it's a very like it's a community that like relies on reciprocity. Like you take code and then you alter it and then you give code, like you give it back with the alterations that you made. And what you see a lot of is like large corporations taking this open source code, altering it enough that they're able to like lay claim to it. And then when
Mhm.
other people use the like original open source code, they will then go after, they will try to sue
Yep.
um the people using the original open source code and be like, oh no, that's like proprietary code. And it's like, no, it's not. You used open source code and
Right.
altered it and then just said it was your own from the beginning. Like this is a very common thing, especially in the finance industry.
Yeah, and I was just reminded, like, I don't know if y'all remember, but on YouTube specifically, I remember the Fine Bros tried to sue for like because their thing was like the React videos, and they tried to own claim on React videos altogether. So they tried to like copyright that as a thing, and obviously they didn't get it because you're allowed to freaking react to whatever you want on the internet. They can't own that, right? But it is something you see a lot of, which is it's weird, right?
We recently learned, I think it was like 4 months ago now. I'm sure Matt knows about this. How Streamlabs was like repurposing OBS as Streamlabs OBS unlicensed,
Hmm.
and then like actively going after people who would design like plugins and widgets or their own like alt OBS version based on OBS, and acting as if they had the right to act in OBS's name when they had no legal right to
Yeah.
do so, or even had the conversation with them of we would like to act in this manner as like a platform for it.
Yeah.
Right.
And
Yeah.
you know, at the end of the day, if there's one takeaway that I hope people get from the show and yeah, just like on a wider scale is I want people to be aware of their rights and be aware of what companies can and can't do.
Hmm.
I had an ex who it goes back to the non-compete thing where she was worried about signing a contract at a new company that she was like really excited to sign for, but there was a non-compete in there that said that she wouldn't be able to work in LA within the industry that she worked in for like the next year. And I tried to convince her like you don't need to worry about that. That's not enforceable in court. But she was so terrified at the prospect of it, she almost didn't sign this job that like she was so excited about, except for this one detail. And I was like, you just don't have
Yeah.
to worry about it. Like it's literally not enforceable. So
Yeah.
people just need to be more aware of what companies can and can't do so that people aren't scared and can't be taken advantage of.
Right. And this is why the end of mandatory arbitration clause in cases of sexual harassment is very important, right? Because, like Riot Games famously, when the lawsuit news dropped for them, that was their number one demand was like end forced arbitration because so many people are scared out of, naming their abuser and like they'll not only get blacklisted from the industry, they'll they just can't talk about what happened to them, which sucks, right? Like you should be able to heal from your trauma in a way that makes sense to you. You should be able to talk about what happened. So I'm happy to see that, and I hope we see more people exercising that.
Is there regarding what Joe Biden signed? Is there a statute of limitation on
I have to
how
check
far
that.
back we can go?
Yeah, I have to check that. But
Because like
I mean, I would just
most,
encourage anyone to
yeah,
do it because hold these places accountable. Otherwise, it's just going to be a repeating cycle.
yeah,
And talk
absolutely.
about it with your fellow employees. You know, you don't need a union to take collective action.
Hmm.
If Riot is a great example where, you know, once people started talking to each other and learning that like, oh, like my incident wasn't an isolated incident, like this is
Right.
happening to everyone. Once you talk to people, you know, you'll learn a lot and you'll learn that like your experience might be a shared experience. And eventually, you know, that had a domino effect where everybody started like hand in hand walking out together and
Right.
like forcing change at Riot. So,
You love to see it.
yeah. Now this all ties directly into our last topic of the day. It's definitely the heaviest. Um this is the wrongful death lawsuit that is going on actively at Activision Blizzard. Recently the Washington Post released an article that Activision Blizzard is being sued for the wrongful death by a family of an employee by the family of an employee who killed herself during her time at Activision Blizzard. Um,
Yeah. She was actually directly referenced in the DFAH lawsuit as well. And it's interesting, right? Because I feel like, this new law that passed probably empowered the family to, I'm going to take them to court because it seems like they tried to hide a lot of what happened, which is, I mean, it's not unheard of. You know, you heard of like HR shredding documents and things like that. So, um, you know, it sounds like they're just trying to protect the bottom line. And I'm super proud of her family for doing this. I think that we should just stand behind them as strong as we can in solidarity, because it's horrible, right? Like, especially going against a company so big and, you know, having this traumatic event happen to you, and, you know, you just want to hold them accountable. So I'm I'm super supportive of this. I don't know the family personally, but I really do wish for them to get justice, because it's just horrible, the stuff that this person went through.
Yeah.
Read an excerpt from the article. um, Microsoft recently agreed to buy Activision Blizzard for nearly 69 billion. Is now being sued by the family of an employee who died by suicide, with the family blaming the woman's death on sexual harassment and claiming that a supervisor then lied to detectives about his relationship with her, according to a copy of the complaint obtained by the Washington Post. The complaint, dated Thursday and filed by the parents of Carrie. Um, Jessica, do you know how to pronounce her last name?
Mm-mm.
Moynihan, I would
Moynihan?
say.
A
Thank you.
32-year-old finance manager at Activision Blizzard, when she was found dead during a company retreat in 2017, claims that sexual harassment was a significant factor leading to her death. Now, this is something that you see all over the industry. Claims that, you know, during a conference, stuff like E3, you know, company outings where drinks are involved, there are usually claims of sexual harassment, and you know, people being forced to drink more than they're comfortable with. This is rampant throughout the industry. I mean, you had somebody who had a leadership position at Blizzard for a long time, who literally he was known for like having a Cosby suite. I mean,
Right.
that's
And
like,
it was a known thing that, you know, BlizzCon was their grounds for whatever the hell they wanted to do with whoever, because they had power, and it's gross. Like, it's obviously something that we need to talk about and highlight, as sensitive as it is. But it's the formula for abuse like this to happen, and it needs to be, you know, accountability needs to be had at at the higher level in order for us to, you know, seek that justice and move on and grow from it.
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. The industry is a stressful enough place, and can be taxing without like, you know, I can't even imagine what the experience of someone female identifying in the industry would be. Um,
Yeah, it's
or
rough. And especially in this case particularly, I had read that prior to her, you know, tragically dying, they were at a holiday party and pictures of her vagina was being passed around. And that's something that, I mean, you kind of hear in like the hush hush of, like, you know, the bro culture, right? Like the frat boy culture is like, you know, sharing nudes and things like that. And it's gross. It's insidious in the industry. And, you know, I feel like the accountability needs to start in your own group. If you see people that are doing things like this, saying things like this, locker room talk, you should just shut it down, because it's, you know, it can always end negatively for whoever is involved. Like, yeah, you want to look cool in front of the guys, but there's a human cost to that, and we really need to be proactive in calling it out and, you know, squashing it.
It's like a disgusting violation of trust at the end of the
It
day.
is.
Like, this is
It's so
not,
wrong.
and like at the end of the day, like we're like, you know, people go to work to, you know, make money, right? So
Right.
like this is like, you know, your livelihood is tied to like this violation of trust, which is also tied to like, you know, like all the social pressures and stuff.
Yeah.
Like
And then
this is awful.
yeah, it is awful. And according to the lawsuit, Activision Blizzard refused to turn over to the police her company issued laptop, said that her cell phone had been wiped, and also refused to give them access to Restituto, who is the male supervisor who was named in the lawsuit, laptop or cell phone. So, I mean, here's Activision Blizzard again trying to mitigate risk, trying to just do horrible ethical things to save their own face. And I hope this family gets justice, because I can't even imagine what that's like. I cannot imagine. And then, you know, the knowing that like this was on a work trip, like all of this stuff was going on with the supervisor, and then they tried to cover it up. Like, I cannot imagine the type of mental toll that takes on a family. So I just wish the best for them, and I really hope they can get justice. And Activision Blizzard is held accountable. Like, why did they wipe all of that stuff? It doesn't make sense.
It's just so blatant. Like
Yeah,
they're actually like undermining like the intelligence of like everybody associated and everybody
right,
who's like looking into this case, because it's just like, okay, we all know exactly what happened. There's this work trip. The guy brought sex toys to this work trip, right? Like there's
right,
like very clear indicators that like the supervisor had like these intentions, and like at least the police like had all this evidence ahead of time. And just the thought that
right.
like the corporation would like literally say, okay, we haven't gotten in trouble for all the crazy stuff we've done so far. Let's see if we can
Hmm.
get away with this. It's like slide it under the rug. Like we just like
Right,
they could have thrown this guy under the bus at the very least, right? Like at the
right.
very end
No,
of the day,
agree.
why not? Like this guy literally is a shit person. He's
Right.
clearly doing things that are awful. Just throw him under the bus, pay out what you need to pay out, and like this wouldn't have been as big of a deal. But the fact that Activision like is complicit in this
Yep.
cover up is why this sort of thing needs to stop. And
And
that's
this
why
isn't
Joe
the
Biden did what
first
he did.
time. Yeah,
Yeah,
thank you, Joe Biden. But I mean,
right.
this shouldn't even have had to been a
Well, I
thing,
mean,
right?
and the
But
crazy part, this is bipartisan. So like not even just thank
yeah,
you, Joe Biden, but like thank you everybody who like passed this bill and like made this
yeah,
happen,
agree,
right? Because like
agree.
this is important. Sorry, I
And
didn't mean to
this
cut you off.
isn't the first time that Activision Blizzard did this. Bobby Kotick actually, stopped a employee from being fired after he raped a woman on a company like holiday party, and he like HR investigated, said fire this guy. Bobby Kotick said no, I'm not going to do that. And that guy, when that was found out after the DFEH lawsuit, he stepped down on his own. That guy did. Um,
Right.
Crazy
Because
stuff. So this
it's
isn't even
all
the first time.
it's all related to the share price. They don't want anything coming out that's gonna affect the share price, you know? And
Yep.
like keeping that guy on, Bobby probably thought like, oh, this guy is like invaluable to the development of like this specific product, and losing
Right.
him will result in a delay, which might affect our share price. And same with like covering this stuff up. They probably ran the analysis and thought that,
Yep.
okay, if we admit to doing this wrong and this comes out in an article, like, we're going to take a hit. So we're going to do our best to cover it up, sweep it under the rug, and hope nothing comes of it. And of course, that's never really what happens. It generally always comes out, and they're reaping what they sow right now.
And I
Yeah.
mean, it
I
also
mean,
ties back to the nepotism that we talked about earlier
mhm.
too, right? Like just everybody hangs out, they grill together, they barbecue together, or whatever. Oh, you're a good guy. I know you're a good guy. I'll take care
Yeah,
of you. Like that culture
exactly.
exists too. It's just
And that's why people don't believe victims, because it's like, oh, I know that guy. He'd never do anything like that. And then it's like, why would I make that up? I just want to be safe at work. Like that's literally all I'm asking for, and
right.
it's sad. And I'm happy that hopefully we can get some accountability here, but this is the problem with publicly traded companies, especially creative. There's always a human cost, always. And it's sad.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. The thought of I mean, I went to school with a lot of people who I went to school like for video game production, and a lot of my former classmates are now colleagues who work all throughout the industry. And just the thought of these people who like joined the industry because they grew up on video games, like something that they have so much passion and joy for, and they wanted to make those things and like contribute to creating like passing down
Mhm.
that joy to future generations. And the thought of them like joining the industry and then being subjected to that kind of behavior. I have some
Yeah.
close friends who have been in similar situations where they've gone to HR, and HR then tells their accusers that they went to HR
Yep.
and then brought them into a room with their accusers, and you know it just ended up in very, very uncomfortable situations. And at the end of the day, like, all the most that happens is the accuser will end up being put on a different team that they don't even want. They
Yep.
didn't want to be moved, but that's their solution. Like, okay, we'll just separate you so you guys don't have to
Right.
interact. It's like it's just really disheartening. Yeah, at the end of the day, companies HR is not, they say it's for the employees, but it's not. It's for the company.
It's
It's
not.
there to protect
Yeah.
the company.
Agree.
But this reminds me of a story that I don't know if we actually had covered this yet, or if I'm trying to remember where I heard this, but there was like this employee that had just joined Blizzard, right? And then like on her first day, it was like her 21st birthday, right? And
Mhm.
like she shows up to work thinking that everything is going to be cool, and then like she's given a shot, like
Yeah.
shots on the, like she spent like time working on it, trying to get like like she worked hard to get the job, to have the education necessary to make it. And like on her first day she's thinking about like, okay, I'm gonna go to work, I'm gonna get things done. And then like
Right.
you're immediately greeted with like a shot of Fireball whiskey apparently.
Yeah, and like they'll say there's no culture problem, but I mean, come on. And look at
That's
Blizzard, right? Like they have those hiring fairs at Blizzard where like you can go in, have an interview, they can look at your resume, and a security engineer went and the two recruiters there asked her cuz she's like penetration security, they asked her if she'd like to be penetrated at the fucking interview. So,
As the
it's
pun
just
master here,
it's
bad pun, bad pun.
Yeah, not
I mean, come on,
and
And
like
it sucks
it's
because
harassment.
BlizzCon is such a good experience for people, like they're like, wow, I can interact with the people that make these games that help me escape from my daily life and things like that. And then could you just imagine being put in a situation like that where it's like, wow, I could potentially get my dream job and then being harassed. It's sad, right? Like it's sad that people use their positions of power to do these things.
Not to
And
mention the doubt
yeah,
that comes with that. Like, oh, am I like
right,
actually talented, or did I just get
right.
this job because my manager wants to fuck me? Like,
Yeah.
always having that insecurity. Like, no one should have to work in a setting like that.
It's not
Right.
great, and I've had people, like, that say things like, "Oh, I like her because she didn't have to suck dick to get the job," and it's like, you're perpetuating that culture of, like, that's how people get ahead in the industry is to sleep with your supervisor or things like that, like, you making those jokes is not helping at all, but
Yeah.
Agreed. And that's not to say that like the industry can be a fun place and you can be friends with your
agree.
coworkers and you can have drinks with your
Yeah,
coworkers. You can have drinks at work with your coworkers. Like it can be a fun time, but there is a line and
there's a line.
you can't like if someone is uncomfortable drinking, then they should not be like they should not feel obligated to drink to be part of the camaraderie. And people should not be guilting them into drinking with them. And
Right.
at the end of the day, like the games industry is still so immature. The amount of parties that I've been to, the after parties where, it's overwhelmingly like usually men. Um, and the few like women that are there like generally like you see like a swarm surround them and it's like guys just
Yeah.
we're all just trying to have a good time, just you guys
Yeah.
hang out with your friends, like don't be creeps. um
Right.
I had an interview at like many years ago before I got my first like real job in the industry. I had an interview at Wargaming. They make
Mhm.
World of Tanks up in San Francisco. And I the just the unprofessionalism I was met with there. I waited 4 hours with my resume in hand to be seen or talked to. The interview was super informal.
Mhm.
There were executives from Russia because it's like a Russian owned company visiting that weekend. And at one point, I
Mhm.
like walk into the kitchen and I see all these executives like passing around my resume and kind of like joking about it. And then they encouraged me to take a shot with them, which at the time I'm like, young Josh trying to
Yeah.
fit in and be cool. I'm like, oh yeah, absolutely, I'll take a shot with you guys. Like this is so cool. Whoa, industry's wild. It's crazy out here.
I can't
Um,
Even older me can't imagine not taking that shot.
Yeah.
right?
Like
Yeah.
they have my resume
Yep.
and they're offering me a shot. There's a chance to like, get that social lube, like just like actually interact with these people and maybe everything's gonna be cool. But like,
And
well,
they were
I'm sorry,
clearly
I didn't.
making fun. No, I mean, like, yeah, like who wouldn't take that shot in that situation? Like, it was
Yeah.
super uncomfortable, and they were clearly like, I didn't have a lot on my resume at the time. I definitely like, when you're that young, you're padding it with everything you can. Like, they were clearly making fun of it, and it was like, oh, this sucks. This is a shitty
Yeah.
feeling.
Yeah.
No. mean, self-depreciating, like, please hire me humor, right? Like, that's so
I actually heard that
awful.
joke at Blizzard as a contractor. Like, I was in the break room and they brought a bunch of interns through because they like show all the interns the whole campus. Um, and the interns walked through and they gave everyone like chips and they had bought stuff for people, right? And the full-time people came in. I was a contractor, so I was just like watching. Um, and two of the full-time guys walked over to the table. They like looked at all the food and they were like, "Oh, please hire us," and like making all these jokes. And I'm like, "Well, that's great to hear as a contractor, you know?" Um, just
Mhm.
famously horrible. And it's a problem that's classist and it's socially ingrained that like if you're not working, you're not worth anything, or if you're not like full time, that you're not worth anything. And you know, these people they make jokes and perpetuate that culture. It's
Yeah,
crappy.
that's awful. Like,
And
that's like, it's like leveraging your power to, like, make jokes at the expense of folks who want the same sort of privilege you have. Sorry,
yeah.
go ahead, Josh.
No, it's just something like the newer generation of developers who are more classically trained, like people who went to school for this,
Hmm.
you know, as we start to replace the old guard, which is definitely a boys' club, hard to deny
Hmm.
that. Everyone who's been in the industry for 30 years or more, like it's a boys' club,
Hmm.
and their behavior is ingrained with people who have been in it that long. Uh, as we start to replace them in positions of leadership, we just need to commit to doing better. Um,
Yeah.
when I, it is definitely a moment that I'm not proud of, and I do a lot of reflecting on, is when I was in college. I started a indie company with some friends, and they're still going strong today. They're called Sunday Month. They are awesome. Um, they're based in Burlington, Vermont. But I remember during a meeting we were talking about like some student artists that we were thinking about bringing on, and one of the reasons I was pitching like, oh, we should bring on this person is because like, oh, but she's like super cute, and like that's just not okay, you know?
Yeah.
Like I was young, immature, and that kind of behavior cannot make it into the professional workplace. It just
I
can't.
Well,
think there's,
and
like, something to be go ahead, Jessica.
well, no, I was gonna say, well, one, I have to go bio, so I'm gonna mute and go bio. But I'm proud of you, Josh, because that reflection is not easy. We're looking inward and being like, wow, that was really shitty, and that probably like affected the people around me. That's huge and part of like reform, right? People think that accountability is just like a witch hunt and like let's ruin this person's career when really it's like, hey, can you realize the thing that you did was wrong? And move to do better and be accountable, you know, and that's really what it is. It's not a witch hunt. And yeah.
Yeah.
Also, I'm going bio. Be right back.
And I was going to add on that point too. Like, it's not just, and it's like there's the self-reflection part, right? Where you're like, okay, I know what I can do better in terms of like my own behavior. But it's also like being willing to call out other people for their behavior patterns. Because
Hmm.
like when you have privilege, you're in a very specific space. You have access to a space that everybody who's being who doesn't have that privilege wishes they had. So like I think it's very important to take advantage of the space you have, and like when you hear someone saying something like, "Oh, they're cute," or "Oh, hey, look at all these poor contractors looking to get work." If you have that position of power, it's really important to be able to say, "Guys, I don't feel very comfortable with this joke. I don't think this is okay." Like they're working their hearts out. Why are you doing this? Like if you're on a and like I would like in the Twitch politics space even, like I encounter this, right? Like there are not a lot of women panelists on shows because like the men have a tendency on certain platforms to just be assholes about things. They'll make jokes about
I've
women.
noticed.
Yeah.
I've watched some
And
streams and just I mean even just the talking over them
yeah,
is it's not great.
it's either talking over or it's like just making jokes at like, someone's like, identity, like the at
Yeah.
their expense, at the expense of their identity, I guess. And like, I'll put myself out there. I'm fine being soy Latin and just saying, yo, this isn't okay, right? And that's what happens. Like I made that call, and then everybody in the channel is like soy, 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 soy. Like there's a whole bunch of group pressure, like to attack me for trying to like, stand up for folks who don't
Or
have
like what
access.
white knighting or whatever.
Yeah, 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 or
Yeah.
whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
So like there's a lot of social pressure. It's almost like the same sort of social pressure that like in hookup culture they would like call it the cock block, right? Like just like, oh, you're not gonna let me hook up with this person, whatever
Yeah.
else, and being willing to say no, you should not be trying to do this right now. This is not okay, and like not being afraid of the social consequences, which is like people might not like you as much, but at least you said and did what's right, which is to stop the behavior pattern. And like it just seems like at Blizzard, like I don't know how many folks actually had the capacity to take these stands initially, just because of like all this overriding pressure from the top down, right?
Yeah, I mean, look,
Like,
the power dynamics make it difficult sometimes. If it's a senior level person who's making the comments, it's hard to put your career at risk by speaking out and being like, "Hey, man, that was kind of not cool," because then you're putting your like any prospect of climbing up the ladder, you're putting that personal success at risk. But I think
yeah,
it's important to do that kind of stuff, and it doesn't help when like, okay, maybe you don't want to confront this person up front, but like in a perfect system that works, you go to HR with it. But we don't operate in a perfect system, and that never works out. The HR has just universally across the industry almost always failed at situations like that. So no one feels comfortable going to HR. So we have no choice but to take it into our own hands, and that's the responsibility that we have.
yeah. I mean, anybody saying that HR will take care of this, that, or the other is, I don't want to say that they're lying necessarily, because that might not be fair for all the companies, but like I feel like HR's role in a company, in a corporation, is to mitigate damage and
Hmm.
maximize, like, not profit, but like, the lack thereof, like maximize, I'm trying to think of like the correct verbiage here.
Minimize
Uh,
damage.
I guess maybe it is just minimize. We'll just focus on minimizing damage and trying to like
Containing
it's
it,
not
maybe.
maximizing, yeah, containing, minimizing. They're not trying to maximize your needs as an employee. They're maximizing the needs of the company first. That's
Yeah.
what I wanted to say. Yeah, there
It's
we go.
like if there's a zombie outbreak, it's that classic moment where the military comes in and just indiscriminately like fire on like it could be a zombie, could be an innocent civilian, they might be infected, I don't know. We're just gonna take them all out because that's
Right.
just
Yeah.
Yeah.
yeah, weird analogy. I don't know
I
why
always
that's
find
where my mind went.
a link between like the career of being a cop, where it's like there are good cops and there are good HR people, but inevitably the function of that role will lead you to have to make bad
Mm,
decisions, and if you don't, then the people above you will make them for you.
that's
And
a
actually,
that's a way better analogy. Thank you, Mike. That was on point. Absolutely. It's a
and
system that's broken.
right, and like, did you? I don't know if you guys saw this, but there's like that video of the good cop. Like, she saw someone getting beat up, and she pulled the bad cop away, and then the bad cop started attacking her
Oh
directly.
my God, I
Yeah, and
saw
then she
that.
got
That
let
was
go like the next week, or like put on
horrifying.
unpaid leave or whatever.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And like that is like a metaphor for all of these situations with power dynamics, because it's not just like a physical beatdown, it's like a verbal beatdown. It's like putting yourself at risk on behalf of people you don't necessarily know, but like using your sense of justice to say, look, I'm not okay working for a company or an organization, if you have that privilege, that would do this to their employees.
Hmm.
And like the lack of privilege, like the fact that you're like constantly under someone's thumb, kind of makes it really hard to do that.
Yeah. Well, so we have some chatter message. Scary Tale said that they remember back in 2013 as a huge trouble that Microsoft got into for having an after party with go-go dancers. Looking
Wow.
back, it's like that's the shit that we know about. What never never got reported, and that's a great point. I also shout out for following us, Scary
Yeah. Thank
Tale.
you for
We
the
appreciate you
follow.
joining in. No, it's true. Like for everything, for every one item that does have light like shown up on it, I can't imagine all the things that we don't know about and
Right.
people who
And
are still scared to speak up.
yeah, and like Jen O'Neill said, and she remembers being at Activision holiday party, and the DJs were encouraging the women to drink more so that the men would have a better time. And this is just part of like tech and games, I feel is such a boys club, right? Because everyone wants to hire their buddies, they want to have like they want that like, cool tech bro startup feel, and it's just going into it as a woman or non-binary, it feels like you're set up against the odds, and it's hard to navigate that world. You want to be seen as the person who's cool, right? And you have to just be okay with things like that. And it's unfortunate. And I super appreciate Jen O'Neill for everything she's done for the industry, and just having that like good character and integrity to call that out. Like, well, no, I remember being at the, and this happened to me. So how can you say it doesn't happen here? Um, and that's part of what we should all be doing, right? Like we should all be proactive, and it's not enough to not be sexist. You have to be anti-sexist, right? Just like the whole talk with like race. It's not enough to be not racist. You have to be anti-racist, right? So just calling out that behavior and holding people around you accountable, and even if it's harmless, if it's harmful, whatever, call it out, and like really get on them about that. But if you hear a joke and you're like, "Ooh, that sounds like it's perpetuating a toxic culture," call it out. And then sometimes, like famously, I'll use an analogy, like the boomer like "I hate my wife" jokes, or like, oh, like it's like a thing
The
to
old
like
ball and chain.
yeah,
Yeah.
Oh,
exactly.
I
So
hate
like
that.
yeah, so like 9 times out of 10, if you just say like, "What do you mean by that?" They'll walk back on it and say, "You know what? I don't really like that." Or, it's like not something that they actually agree with. It's just something that has been in the culture for so long. So,
This isn't.
going into
Sorry,
yeah,
no,
going
no,
into
keep going.
these no, you're good. Going into these like situations in game dev or any industry where it's just male dominated field, just calling out those instances really helps, and it'll help the people around you feel safer as well.
This isn't
Agreed.
my personal story, but this is one that internet celebrity and former member of Josh's organization, Bruce Green, when he was at G4, always tells that one day just someone in the office, mid 2000s, when this was quote unquote acceptable, just called something gay, and he's just like, "What do you mean by that?" And then like everyone just looked
Mm,
at him, and he's just like, "Well, like
yeah,
you know what I mean?" And it's like, "No, I don't. What do you mean?"
yeah.
It's that
Yeah.
easy.
Just ask them to explain it, and usually they'll walk back on it and say, "Oh, that's not right," and then kind of call it out. Like you're not trying to embarrass the person, but I'd rather everyone in the room feel safe. Like that's more
Yeah.
important to me than someone feeling uncomfortable for a shitty joke they made.
Yeah, I have
Yep. I
no
gotta say,
doubt that the experiences that Jen went through during her initial like rise and climb through the industry in the early days, because she really did climb
Yeah,
up the ranks during the days of the boys club. So much more respect to her for
for
becoming the
real.
president of Vicarious Visions during that time period. And I'm sure that like was reflected in her leadership style. Like during my time at Vicarious Visions, we had holiday parties, and we had like every Friday there would we would have like beer passed around the office and stuff. And at no point did I feel like any of those parties or gatherings crossed the line. It always felt very respectful. It felt like like just it was just a good time. Like I don't know. It's hard to describe it, but the atmosphere in the office, in my experience, and I certainly don't speak for everyone over there. Maybe people did not
Mhm.
have shared experiences, but I always felt that it was pretty respectful, and I think that is reflective of Jen's leadership.
I was gonna say like this same culture like is permeates chess as well, like boys
Mhm.
club, etc., etc. Um, there was a streamer who like recently beat like their toughest opponent ever, right? Really proud of herself. Like things have been like super awesome. And like the types of hate tweets as a response, like, "Oh, this guy must have been tired. Why are you bragging about being someone so low rated, etc., etc., etc." Like there's like this very hostile environment. And
Mhm.
there's a chess celebrity who actually responded, a female chess celebrity, one of the three Polgar sisters who are famous in the chess world. I don't know if anybody's familiar with the names. It's fine. But she's like, yeah, I actually had this experience where like decades ago I gave a quote to the media. I'm just going to read it. I had never beaten a healthy man. These male GMs were either sick, had a headache, toothache, or some sort of problems, and they lost to me. I use each time as a motivation. And like that is literally the type of culture that exists in like a lot of these boys club activities. And like there'll be like these top down attempts at change, right? Cultural change. Like, oh, we got to bring more women into chess. How do we do it? And like without the cultural shift happening grassroots, you're not going to be able to do the top down thing. And in chess has been like somewhat disastrous. They've got this thing called mixed doubles. Okay. So in mixed doubles, the way this works, you can go to a chess tournament, and to decide whether you're going to win a chess tournament, there's like a point system. You win a game, you get a point. You lose a game, you get 0 points, right? Whoever has the highest score wins. Mixed doubles, you are paired with a female player, right? Well, I mean, I guess you being me, I'm thinking about myself here. Women, you'd be And like
Heard was a
we don't
male
even
player,
have, and
vice
then we don't even
versa.
have like the non-binary thing. Like I don't even know how that's gonna like fit into the system. Like it's a hot mess, honestly. But like uh, a man, male and a female, femme presenting, whichever, are put on a team together, and their combined score is rated against anyone else who's on a mixed doubles team, and you can get an additional cash prize of like $3,000 for your event, right? It sounds like it would be really cool as a recruitment tool, right? Like I'll like find my friend, teach them chess, and then we're gonna go ahead and save the system and like bring women into chess. The way this actually works out, you show up to a chess tournament as a female or femme presenting, and every guy that doesn't have a mixed doubles partner is going to approach you and ask, "Hey, do you have a mixed doubles partner? Hey, do you have a mixed doubles partner?" And like if you are like more attractive, you'll note that more guys want to be your mixed doubles partner for some reason. They want to go over games, etc., like things like that. And I think that's like just gross, right?
Yeah.
And like the top, and again, like this is a top down response. They're trying to make this work, and I get like the good idea, like it's a good idea in like theory or as a hypothesis, I guess. But without that grassroots change, without like chess players correcting each other's behavior patterns, it's not going to
Right.
do anything.
Definitely agree there. And I feel like that can translate to so many different industries, like not just chess, not just games. It's like, I don't know. It's just a weird cultural thing.
So,
Yeah,
well, it's just
this
like
is
this.
definitely not restricted to just the video game industry, but it's definitely something that is prevalent, probably more in the entertainment and tech industries. And video games is a cross section of tech and entertainment, so I think that you probably see the most of it here.
Perf. Also, I want to mention the streamer. She's Lula Robs. She just gave me permission to actually say her name. She's awesome. You guys should check her out. I'm just going to give her a quick shout out because she does chess and she does it really well, and I'm a huge fan, and etc. etc. Okay.
I
All
love chess. I'm always I need to learn how to like actually play chess and different strategies because I just go and lead with my king, which is so stupid and not what you're supposed to do. But in my mind, I'm like, well, the king should lead. You know,
Wait,
Are you the
how
main
can the
character of
pawns
Code
be
Geass?
expected
What's
to
happening right
follow
now?
if the king does not lead?
so do you? They call this the Blanc. I think they call it the Bong Cloud, where you lead with like the king moving forward. That's the
Yeah.
actual name of the opening. I'm impressed that you would take that chance. In your chess.
But that's the thing. It's not a strategy in my mind. It's just an ideology. It's like
He's LARPing.
he must go. Oh,
Well,
sorry, Mike. What are you saying?
I said you're
What is-
LARPing, like you're LARPing in your
Oh
chessboard.
yeah, I'm literally chess LARPing. It's like basically there's no strategy to it. It's just I lead with the
Gotcha,
king. But
gotcha.
sometimes it throws people off. So they're like, what is this guy doing? Does he know what he's doing? Is this some bold new strategy? It's not, and I just don't know what I'm doing. But one of
Real,
these
real
days
quick, I
I'll
want to
have
jump in. I won't go into like detail, but like having spent good four years in like tournament organization for tabletop top stuff like Magic, Yu-Gi-Oh, Pokemon, as a judge, as an organizer, as a store employee, anytime there is a female presenting person, or a non-binary presenting person, or any sort of alt presenting person, in an event, in a competitive event, and they are succeeding at any medium level or above at top tables, they will have more judge calls on them. They will have more people telling judges they suspect them of cheating. They will have more
Wow.
people, like just basic rules. Like and the other player knows it's a basic rule, and they will be like, "You can't do that," and then they have to call a judge just to be like, "No, I can do this." And it is across the board. It is any dominated space, because all spaces inherently, because of capitalist systems, were created by men. Like every
Yeah.
space is a male dominated space if it was made more than 20 years ago, because that is the society that we come from.
This actually reminds me of a very appalling story, actually. Going back to the Polgar sisters, the youngest, Judith Polgar, was probably, I think she's the strongest female player of all time, and then like fourth strongest in the world when she was at her peak, right? She was playing Gary Kasparov, world chess champion. You've probably heard his name recently due to the news. Gary Kasparov broke a basic chess rule in front of her. There's a touch move rule. If you touch a piece, you have to move it. He touched a piece and did not move it. And teenage Judith Polgar was too intimidated to call him out. He's the world chess champion. How do I say, hey, you're cheating? The only reason we even know that this happened was because it just happened to be caught on camera in 1994, and like that was like not a thing that would normally happen. But
Mm,
like if you wonder like why women are having a hard time participating in anything, just think about like all these like little like just taking advantage of that like that culture, that intimidation, that privilege. I'm
right.
too afraid to call out this person, even though I have every right and procedural justification to do so. It's
Yeah.
awful.
Yep. It's all just a lot of insecurities. Is I think what a lot of it boils down to.
And just imagine being the first woman to like beat the world champion in a rated chess game, right?
Yeah.
Like that would have been like a momentous occasion in the chess world. That would have driven more women into chess.
We'll have
Right.
to we're gonna have to do a side episode where you just give us chess history at some point because I'm so enthralled.
Sorry. Yeah.
No,
Okay, good.
no, I'm
Good. Good. Good.
serious.
I'm glad.
No, it's good stuff. I'm totally serious. We'll have to do an off the rail segment at some point. But as we start to wrap up today's show, if anyone has any more questions for any of us, if you have chess questions for Mad Lad, feel free to start dropping them, and we'll start to close out the show here. But I think we had a lot of good dialogue. And yeah, I know these are hard topics to talk about. So Mad Lad, Jess, Mike, thanks for hopping on and discussing these because it's not easy.
Always
Yeah.
happy to, because yeah, it's uncomfortable, but like I said, I'd rather make people uncomfortable than not talk about important things and make people feel safe, right? So I
Absolutely.
think these are conversations that are necessary in order to like move forward, right, societally, and we just need to keep having these conversations, and hopefully we can empower some people to do the same.
Yep. I
Yep.
mean, just think about your boundaries, right? Like ahead of time,
Yeah.
like before you enter these situations, like what are you okay with? And then like when you see like, whether it's a company or supervisor or whatever else, like doing something that you feel uncomfortable with, like think about that boundary. Cause like I think that's like where a
Right.
lot of that intimidation comes from is like you don't immediately understand why you have this unpleasant feeling. You're caught in the moment,
Mhm.
you don't have time to process. So you're just like kind of going with the flow until you have time to process. Like if you think about these things a little bit ahead of time, and I mean, I'm sorry that we have to do this. Honestly, like we
Right.
shouldn't have to do this. It's like a terrible labor. But like if we're since we live in this society that we do, like thinking about things ahead of time might give you that edge.
And not
Be
just
on this
ahead of
time.
time, but afterwards, post,
Yeah.
do
True.
some reflection, sit with those. If something that you did like made you feel kind of icky when you get home from work, don't don't just like push it away and avoid it. Like sit with those feelings and
Right.
reflect and analyze. Like, huh, why do I feel wrongly about this, and why is this person avoiding me at the office? Like, just
Hmm.
take some time to understand and you know own up
And this
own
does
up
go
to it.
both ways, right? Like this is like just like any sort of situation that happens in the office, you can like, kind of figure this out. I also want to emphasize that we're not mental health professionals. Any
We're
advice
not.
Mm.
we're giving here is like just our personal experiences being bequeathed to you. Um,
But I mean, that does trend I think this would be a good time to bring up the fact that next week's episode we will have a
ah,
mental health professional on.
Yes, we will. We have a psychometrist. I think is how you say the title. Not so erudite will be joining us for the 2-year anniversary of the COVID lockdowns. That is, we were there. It's been 2 years.
Wow.
No,
We
no, don't tell me this.
we made it. We
Don't
made
tell
it,
me this.
everybody! Like, yeah. No,
To your
okay.
point, I mean, but I
Oh,
mean, it's winding down. The mask
yeah.
mandates are ending. Work from home is slowly coming to an end, much to my chagrin. I love working from home. Um,
It's
and
not.
it's hopefully Omicron will be the last big spike that we see. So I think it'll be a I think it's gonna be a good time to reflect on the last 2 years because a lot's happened. It's been hard for everyone's mental health, working from home, being isolated away from their colleagues.
I want to be clear, just not to push back on what you're
Yeah,
saying here at all or whatever. I just want to be really, really, really clear. Like it depends on like some of us, right? Like there's some of us who are still like, trying to cope. Like some
Hmm.
folks still aren't going out, still
yep.
working from home. I had to make some really big decisions about whether I was going to be teaching in person or not this year. I mean, in a sense, it's ending in terms of like, okay, we're going to have everybody's gonna be vaccinated and we're going to start living our lives best we can. But like, we still haven't vaccinated folks who are under the age of 5 yet. We still haven't, and the vaccines for the 5 to 11 group has like that 14, I think it's like 14% of the folks who
Mhm.
are receiving this vaccine are like, feeling better. We're trying to end it as a culture, as a society. I mean, I think honestly, we have years of dealing with this to go.
Oh, sure.
Um,
Without getting
but
too tripped up on wording,
yeah,
let me clarify. This
yeah,
is something we'll have to live with for years. It's not gonna like go away or end. Rather, the
The
I guess,
lockdown era.
yeah, the era of lockdown is coming to an end. But yeah, you're right. This is like, this is going to become something like the flu that we live with for like decades going forward. And more
forever.
like from purely from like a statistical standpoint, you see case numbers are at record lows, and the
Mhm.
overall trend and trajectory is going down. So that is more of what I meant. But yeah, it's not like this is not gonna just go away.
I wish. I wish it would just go away.
Yeah,
But
remember when we thought it
also
was just gonna go away after like 3 months?
yeah, Blizzard was like,
That was
"Hey,
fun.
everyone, go home for 2 weeks and then come back." And then like I had stuff left at my desk for a year. Um,
I actually, not to start getting into this topic ahead of time. I actually took 2 weeks off right before the pandemic started, before the lockdowns happened, because I was pretty confident it was going to be awful. And like I would run chess tournaments, right? So like these are public gatherings where people would like, congregate, et cetera, et cetera. I didn't want people to get sick. I didn't want my tournament to be like, the vector for super flu,
right.
because like,
Yeah.
I'm in the DC area, so people are traveling all the time, et cetera, et cetera. Lots of government officials, kids were involved in these tournaments. So I took my 2 weeks off, shut down my events. And then the day I was supposed to come back was the day that my company said, "Hey, we are ceasing all operations. We have no idea what's going to happen."
Yeah.
It was a crazy wild year. But we'll have time to reflect on that.
Yeah, and
And
Yeah.
we'll
yeah,
be able to talk with a professional about the long-term and short-term effects that the pandemic has had on people's mental health. And
Real quick as we're wrapping up here, just some things that chat brought up throughout the show that I
yeah,
thought we
Mhm.
should just hit on real quick. The first one being that you all spoke about how you felt that the settlement amount that Blizzard was putting out there was
yeah,
really low to start at 10 million. Riot's original settlement, which I know Mad Lad put in the chat as well, responding to some of the chatters, was actually 10 million, and they had to be
Mm,
intervened with by the state of California to get that 100 million. That was 2 years later or 3 years later,
yeah. Yeah.
which
Definitely
is
expecting a long fight from them. So that's part of why I was like, "Hey, throw my hat in the ring. I'm ready to fight." It's super important that we just hold them accountable because they're gonna try and slip away at the bare minimum, and we should be doing our due diligence to hold them to the ethical maximum. So very good call out, and yeah, I expect it's gonna be a couple years because they like to speed things up when it's going for them, and when they don't want to do something, they will kick the can down the road, and then blame Microsoft. So
and then
well, it's
from
profitable
our
for them to do that, right?
yeah.
yeah,
I mean, this is why I just don't believe in the whole like the free market will guide everything, and there should be no government oversight. Because it's like, if there were no regulations and no government oversight, like yeah, like the Riot
yeah,
case would have just been swept under the rug, and it would have been a measly 10 million. Like you need regulations, you need the government to step in some of these cases.
definitely.
I mean,
The free
notice how
market.
all the Activision articles we pulled up today from events that were from and documented years ago only exist post the current Activision scandal. That's why it's
Yeah,
important.
Yeah,
It's like these other things happened. They were recorded by police. They were known by employees. The
yeah,
2017 death, the 2019, fireball shot, whatever. And none of those articles were published pre 2021, 2022.
yeah.
yeah,
And then another thing also from our lovely designer, Fisk, brought up that Activision is also in the middle of a legal battle with an indie developer over their game
That's
that
right.
refers to Warzone. So that's great.
Mm,
And thank you so
isn't
much,
that
Fisk, for all the
nice?
great work you do as well. An unsung hero of this team.
yeah. It's a great
Yeah, I
call
love
out.
this. Yeah, Activision will sue like cheat companies and anybody that remotely makes anything similar to them, and then if you sue them, you're like the worst person in the world. So we'll see. Hopefully they get their
Yeah.
just desserts.
Yep, yep. I'd love to see their day in court. But on that note, I think we can start to wrap it up. Thank you all once again for joining us. Thank you, everyone who stuck around this long, and I hope you enjoyed having Mad Lad on as our third co-host for the week. And next week we'll be returning to our classical two-host with a guest schedule and setup.
And
Yeah,
also to talk about who we're rating, because we are going to be rating a fantastic individual, Joe Lewis. So Joe Lewis is a political Twitch member. He's been covering, so last year he was covering the elections in the state of Virginia. And he's been covering like how school boards and the public kind of interact, and like how folks on the national level have been kind of interfering with school board elections and all this other stuff. Right now, he is discussing racism. So we'll be visiting him quite soon. Remember to plug that Katie Doe. Oh, is that happening today?
Don't forget
I got it
that
all. I'm
Katie
just
Doe.
waiting for you guys to wrap up before I start because the one time I cut you guys off. So I just wait now. I kind of hold it, till we're really ready to close it